So, for this episode of Liquidicast, I'm super glad that we are joined by Fernando Mexía. Fernando will introduce himself in a second and tell you guys what he's doing. The title he wears is Senior Director Digital Entertainment at Univision. So he is a media industry professional who also happens to write very informative and interesting articles on Web3, on NFTs. And of course, coming from his point of view, I thought that would make for a very interesting conversation. Just to give you a little personal backdrop, the first piece I think that I saw and read from Fernando was a piece about how marketing organizations are currently thinking about and working with NFTs, what they are doing and what they are not doing. So that is certainly going to be the starting topic for our discussion today, and then we will go left and right. I'm personally quite fond of Fernando's writing and perspective on the topic, so I'm looking forward to this one. But first things first, Fernando, welcome to have you here. Maybe you want to give our listeners a brief summary and introduction from your point of view.
Well, thank you for having me, Tom, Jonas. It's great to be here. I love to be part of this podcast and what you are doing and you have been doing on the NFT and Web3 space. As you said, I work for, well, now it's TelevisaUnivision, which after the merger. I basically manage a team of content creators that are working constantly on engaging with millions of people all over the US and Latin America with entertainment content that are related to TV and also digital original properties. So that's basically my day to day. And then at night is when I dig into the Web3 space. I found it very fascinating and also troublesome at the same time, as I have this dual feelings about it. So it's since my role is in entertainment and in digital, it's basically a duty that I have to myself to be informed about what is going on, and part of that is understanding what others are doing. Right. I think this space is very confusing and could be frustrating. But at the end of the day, this is coming. Either you are already in the space or you are not. This is coming your way. So it's better to be prepared, right? So that's why I started to work on this stories, because
you wrote the other day a piece like telling the story about you and the Web3 and your love-hate relationship with it.
yes, yes,
Or the other day, I think it's 8 hours ago, if I see
yes,
it correctly,
last night,
here on
last
Medium.
night.
But I managed to at least read the first part and skim the second before the recording. And I think in this part, maybe you can give a quick summary of what you did here, because I think it's cool as to position you. Like you said, in the night you started digging into this
Yes,
space. You did some investments and
yes.
some 1
Look,
million. Which coin did you buy?
I failed miserably in many things. I made a lot of mistakes, um, but I don't regret it. I mean, it's part of the process, right? It's part of understanding something that is completely new. You have to get your hands dirty, and so that's what I did. And I lost some money. I hope to get back a few, maybe not this year, maybe next in a few years when things are more normalized. But
Yeah.
I don't regret it. I think it's what I do at night. It's been my since last of October that I really had my aha moment. That I, as you mentioned in that story, I had my aha moment Saturday. I was in this same room, reading, going through one article to another article, like probably wasting my time and not going to sleep. And I found this white paper that had to do with streaming and decentralization. And it's like, oh, hold on a second, this is new for me. And I start to read that thing, and it's like, what, no, wait a minute, and it's like, okay, this is gonna take me out of my of my role, and probably end my career if I don't start digging on this thing right now. So I got
I like it so much
what's the
because
specific point that made you think, well, this is now something I have to invest some additional time in?
Well, it's
like a specific detail.
I don't remember. I was yeah, I think it was that this decentralization idea of streaming, because it's it's the other way of how things work today. It's completely it's a 180 degrees change. So and it's what everybody's talking about it with free and metaverse and the decentralization power of nodes and not having big corporations centralizing the operations, and you can have all around, and also the watch to earn, which is not new as a concept, but when you put it on the blockchain, suddenly it becomes like like a different business. So it's like, wait, hold on. This is like two things at the same time that are telling me that what we are doing could be done in a different way. And it's like, okay, I don't know anything about this. So it's not like I was completely sold on, oh yes, this is the way we have to do this, or I or my company, because I don't specifically work on streaming, but the company or the other streaming companies had to do this. And no, it's not like that. But for me, it's like, oh, hold on a second, I don't know anything about this thing. It sounds very interesting. It sounds very powerful, and it could be if this is the next thing, I don't know how I gonna fit in that space if I don't do something to change that. I have to get that skill, or at least be able to have a conversation about this, the same way I have a conversation about, I don't know, Facebook. And so I got very stressed out at that moment. I'm like, okay, hold on. But I need to work my whatever off and start learning about this thing.
That's usually what happens in the research phase, I guess.
Yeah, and that is so relatable. I think everybody who entered this space at one point or another has a pretty similar story or can relate to this, because at some point you really stumble upon something, you have the first access point, and then you go deeper and deeper, and it's really a rabbit hole you're following. And what I like a lot, and that is, I think, something that sets you apart from at least some like digital leaders in corporations, is that you take this hands-on approach where you, as you put it, you get your hands dirty, which I think is essential, because everything in tech is also like a cultural movement, or there is at least a cultural component to it. And of course, you need to, in my opinion, you should really be willing to play around with the stuff, and only this way you can really get the hang of it and understand the principles in there. And I think, judging from your reading, especially, I mean, you're quite new, then you bring the perspective that I find quite interesting with your background in the media industry. But I guess you did a good job so far, because the writing you put out in Medium, as I said already in the intro, I'm quite fond of. And where I would like to start our conversation is, or we are already in it, but where I want to focus on and get a bit deeper right now is the observations that you shared in the piece about NFTs in big company marketing. And you dissected, amongst other things, the type of mechanics that you have seen being used by brands. And I think you did also describe quite well how marketing organizations are currently thinking about NFTs, and what you think are like the misunderstandings or the shortcomings in this point of view. So maybe you can elaborate a bit on what you see in this field of marketing, or the space where NFTs and marketing organizations meet nowadays.
Yeah, sure. So back in, well, last year, I when I was doing that, after that aha moment, I started doing research and trying to understand what others were doing. And I found that there was the first thing I learned is that there was no like a roadmap or some place where you can go and find that. Okay, you are gonna go into this space, then fine, just follow these 2 steps. I mean, you have a lot of stories about that, like 3 things you have to do, blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But it's not like it's not like you can use that for your company and that works perfectly. And it's not because there shouldn't be like something like that, right? Is another learning is like you have you have your IP, you know your customers, so don't what the first thing you have to do is to protect your company, to protect your customers, to think about how this new technology can be useful to you instead of how can you take your IP to that space. It's not. I wouldn't go that way. Though there are companies, especially in marketing, or big corporations that are like Pepsi, Coca-Cola, that they are usually doing campaigns, branding campaign, that they are getting quickly into the space. And this is my opinion. Of course, I haven't been in conversation with their strategy team, but what it seems they are doing is like they always want to be in where the new things are happening. So they take their brands there. It's the same thing. The same thing happens with Web3. So they usually do one-offs, like okay, we're gonna take the brand there in a way that is safe for us, and then it looks cool. So they what they do is, instead of,
I have talked to some of these executives, and I can confirm it's exactly their thinking.
okay,
Like this is
that's
some of the
good.
fashion brands there. They want to be where like the early adopters and the in crowd is, because that is part of their brand DNA. So at least for some of these campaigns that we have seen, that is certainly the driving factor.
And it works because they are, as you said, they are trying to reach out to the early adopters, which makes sense for them. And so for if you are trying to reach out early adopters, it's perfect. You just go and do a drop on OpenSea or any other marketplace. You know that they have a wallet, that they have Ethereum, that they are already ready to get into your brand. If they love your brand, they will go there and they buy it, or they trade. That's perfectly fine, and it works for them. The problem is if you are not those companies and you think that the way to go is doing that. Because if you are not going to reach out to the early adopters, by the way, the early adopters is a small community. It's not like millions of people. We are talking about, I don't know, some millions probably, but in the whole world. It's not like, I mean,
Yeah.
A drop is 10,000 NFTs. 2 drops, 3 drops, 50,000 NFTs. Okay, the most popular drops in the top 10, maybe in total, you have there, I don't know, 100,000, 1 million of NFTs out there. Okay, 1 million of NFTs. If one person have one NFT and you have 1 million people, that's not a lot of people for a corporation. So if you are not going to reach out to them, then you have to be careful on what you do, because you're not probably getting you are not getting your goals by going to Web3 in a very I don't know, premature way, just because everybody's going there, which is like this FOMO feeling. Oh, we have to be there quickly, do something, drop something anywhere, and it can backlash actually. So
But
so
to play devil's advocate here, it does go along the lines of, hey, get your hands dirty and start and try something, and try to learn from it.
that is totally true. I mean, you have to. I've been doing that. It doesn't mean that you have to suddenly do a huge marketing campaign saying, "Hey, we are going there and buy our." I mean, if maybe because I work in the media, right? So everything that we do in the media is like we try to reach out to everybody. So my instinct is, okay, this thing is not like something I would do for everybody. This thing is something I would do like under the table somehow. Like you do it, you try it, you go, you promote it in some places that is not usually the space that you where you have your audience. You don't go to your audience with this product unless you know that they're going to love it, because there is only one chance to make a first impression. And if you're actually going to do this thing, in a few years or in a few months, and you're going to invest big money on this and take your brand there, and you expect your audience or your customers to follow you in this interesting trip, then be sure that whatever you do the first is actually awesome. Because if not, it's going to be harder to connect with them and gain their trust, which is funny, that it's part of the whole thing, trust, if you make a mistake in the beginning.
And I think one of the key advices you gave in the aforementioned piece is then, hey, you need to really understand your audience, and you need to, depending on who your audience is, who you want to reach, you maybe need to take a very different approach to this. And that, to me, it of course it was very relatable, because we at Liquiditeam, we have conversations with sometimes brands that want to be really early adopters. But then, for instance, we do a lot in the sports industry and work with sports clubs, and for them it's usually about reaching their fans. And the majority of fans of most sports teams, of course, are not Web3 early adopters. So you really need to differentiate there, and that is something that, even though it's, I mean, potentially obvious, it's not something that everybody has a clear understanding of when he or she starts to look into NFTs and how you can do it. And then the segmentation logic that you came up with, you said, hey, there's like the type or the persona, let's call it, that you defined: the curious one, the beginner, the amateur, and the expert. And you made a nice table with some do's and don'ts for this. Maybe you can give a bit of context how you created this, because I think you also did some research, right, to come up with this.
Yes, I mean, I review every single project to make a little table that you you see there. But it was very interesting for me to do it, and part of writing a story for me is that in the process of writing something, maybe because I have a long career of being a reporter before working and having the role that I have right now. So for many years I was a reporter, and when you report on something, the writing process is also a learning process, because when you write, you connect dots. When you read, you get like an idea, right? And you maybe understand what you are reading, and you get it. But when you write and you have to explain it, then you find the gaps. So by doing that, it helped me to tell that story and to make this piece. You mentioned the curious, the amateur, the beginner, the amateur, and the expert. And the way I made it is by focusing on the access to the technology, and that's critical. At least at this point, people are talking about utility, and I completely agree that there's a need for utility. The follow up is critical, but we are now, at least from my perspective, and focusing on non-users, that the way you present the product to the audience is critical for the experience that they have and the first impression. So I was actually looking for how different companies deal with that problem, because it is a very challenging thing. And I found that there are some approaches like Disney that they say, okay, you know what? I want my audience, my user, my consumers to have the best experience. I don't want them to have any issue, nuisance, noise, frustration. Let's get that out of the equation. Let's make it so simple that they can actually own an NFT. They feel proud of having part of our brand, and they can collect it, and that's it. So they went with Veve, right, which is an app, and it's a centralized system. It's an app like any other app. You basically is so Web 2 that you probably don't even know that you're in Web 3. So they went that way.
But that is by design.
Yeah. And And there are other companies that they say, okay, we don't want this to be so closed. We want this to be kind of give you some freedom, because if you embraced the Web3 technology, somehow you are embracing decentralization, you're embracing the openness, the trustless ecosystem. And if you are not going that way, it's like you are it's Web3, but it's not. So they are trying to, and it's the middle ground where I think things will definitely go, right? It's not the Web, and Web is opening, actually. They are trying to get out of this closed environment and allow people to take their money back, because you cannot do that right now.
Yeah.
So you go to the to projects like Warner, for instance. You see Warner, and Warner they are with NFT, Palm NFT, and is those projects that allows you to buy using your credit card and allows you to buy using crypto at the same time. If you want to go the easy way, you can go the easy way. If you come from the Web3 space, you can go the Web3 way. But it's very controlled. It's very controlled. It's a space that is controlled by them, and it's not on Ethereum. Is you have to take your NFT out of any other blockchain and to OpenSea. So if you want to have the NFT of Matrix, then you can have it there. If you want to take it out, you can take it out, but it's up to you. It's not like you are dropping something on OpenSea, which is what McDonald's, Taco Bell, Pepsi, Coca-Cola they do, right? Because they don't care about they are not trying to build a community around their brand or their NFT. They are trying to reach those who are there, which is a completely different approach.
And maybe get a nice PR story out of it on top.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that often goes hand in hand as well. But yeah, I mean that is definitely accurate. And I mean, to give you just like from the other side, because we are on like the product and solution development side here at Liquiditeam, it's quite interesting to and also sometimes tough to make these choices, right? For us, because we started before opening our software to creators. Now everybody can use it. So it's a Web3 content and community management system. But we started really with a focus on the sports industry and the enterprise market, and I mean, there it is very clear who you have to design for, and it is people who don't want to manage their private keys because they don't even know what a private key is, at least on average, and I think you can say that you need to make these trade-offs. And I mean, all of us in our team, we have a strong affinity for the ethos and the idea in the Web3 community, but how to make it big is probably you need to initially make some trade-offs, and then a terminology that the guys at A16Z coined, or at least popularized, is like progressive decentralization, right? But what must not suffer, at least in our opinion and in our design philosophy, is the user experience, because that is really critical. And I know the UX of Web3 is also a topic that you have strong opinions on, and I think you are also a proponent of making it easy to use for users.
No, look, there. I was thinking. So what has to happen? What has to happen in order for mass adoption to actually be real? And yeah, it's utility, and there are many things that can happen. But there is one specifically, which is I don't think we people talk enough about this thing. And I know there are companies working on this thing, which is the wallet. So if your ID, your persona is going to be on the web on a blockchain, and you can move from one space to another space, and basically present your credentials using this wallet. Look, that experience, like your wallet is of course maybe it's part of your smartphone or something like that, but your wallet is your identity. That has to be pretty cool. That has to be an awesome experience. And I think that the first company that designed a wallet that my mom wants to have on their smartphone, that company is going to nail it. That is going to be mass adoption for whatever, for an NFT that is just a picture, or for something that is ownership of a license or whatever. That is going to be part of it. And I so far, what you see on wallets is like this place where you kind of you collect your stuff, but it's not something you show off. Basically, it's a private thing to have, but it should be the other way around. It should be more exposed, and something that social media companies have taught us in the last decade is that people want to share. So the experience of having without the experience of sharing, it's just half of experience.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, that is the way we think about it. Our wallet service, we don't even call it a wallet service. We call it Fan ID. It's called, and we call it a Web3 identity and wallet service. And that is only the first step. It is like, from a product standpoint, not where we want to have it, but directionally, what you are saying definitely rings a bell, because I think even the terminology, I would think, as long as you call something wallet, people don't really want to have it, or only very specific people want to have it. But it's your universal digital identity, essentially. And yes, your identity is also made up of the things you own, right? Like in the analog world as well, right? You have like certain stuff that you put prominently in your living room, or you drive a certain car, yada yada yada. So that is true. I don't know if you came across something interesting. I didn't dig too deep into it yet myself, but Vitalik recently talked about soul-born NFTs, like taking a word from the World of Warcraft world, where you can have some NFTs or items that are really bound to your wallet, and you cannot even transfer them easily, which is, I think, also, like from a technical standpoint, something that goes in the same direction. Like the identity of the individual user is really what should be at the core, and your identity, I guess probably for most people, the least important part of their identity is how much is in their wallet.
Yeah, totally.
Right?
No. And I read about the soul NFTs, soul bound NFTs, and I found that it was the utility of it is very interesting. It's very interesting because it's about you, and one of the thinking about this evolution of the internet, and I was getting into, okay, the web one, or the first web, was about the information, access to information. So it was basically data driven. The second one was socially driven. The first one was about data. The second was about us, like us as a community, as people, friendships, family, getting connected, even when you are not close to each other. That was the second version of the internet, or the second step on the evolution of the internet. The third one for me is about me. We are going to shift from group of people having a lot of followers and all that craziness about being super popular in the world, and having that big communities, to more like, what about me? So what about me? What do you have for me? What's my experience? How can I get better on this? What can I get from this that makes my life better? So that is the experience of being myself with that an ID that is not an ID. I agree with you. Wallets, IDs sounds like a bank or a police. So you don't want to use that word, but being yourself on the internet in a way that is unique. That is a step in this process that I think that will mobilize a lot of people. Because once you see that your neighbor, your friend has this, hey, look, I am this person, and when I go to this place, I get this incentive for going there, and I receive from the companies that I love. They send me stuff for free because, hey, I love them and they love me back, and so that is so cool. That if the experience, when you visualize it on your smartphone or your computer or any other device that maybe comes up in a few months or years, and it actually represents you, you don't even will be around making yourself an ape form or a punk form of avatar to go into the metaverse or the virtual reality. You just want to be yourself. So yourself in your wallet will be yourself in this metaverse. And it's like, yeah, you want to be trading your face or something like that, because it's actually very relevant to be yourself. And that's what I think things are going. And this experience is yet to be built. And but I find it fascinating, and I think that it is actually coming, and we have to work on that.
So what does this mean? Like, you don't need to go too deep into, unless you want to, what you are actually doing in your day-to-day job. But in general, what do you think does this mean for the media business, the entertainment business? How should they tackle this shift to the you, to the me, as you're describing it, and also what comes with the Web3 space currently?
Look, it's I don't know. I don't have an answer for that. I I assume that it will start for a better personalization of experience. So once you present yourself in a way that represents you, because right now media companies and general companies, you get to know your audience through research, right? So it's a sample, it's a survey. You get 10% of your users, and then you extrapolate from that. You say, okay,
Yeah.
and
And then maybe you have some, depending on how good you are at online, you might have user behavior data and so on, and you can be a
yeah,
bit better at profiling, but it's limited,
and you
especially
depend
because you
on third
don't know.
parties.
Yeah,
It's not
exactly.
like uh, a media company owns the tools to actually do the research. You use Google, you use Facebook, you use somebody else. And blockchain, what it does is they take them out of the equation. This is my personal opinion, but that's why Mark Zuckerberg is so I would say nervous. Maybe it's not excited, but is so into the metaverse, because when you see that this is coming, and how is that going to impact your business? Now you're in the middle. You own the community. You have the control through an algorithm to connect A to B. You're in the middle. So if A doesn't need you to go to B, and B can send to A the information that A needs, what's your role, right? So
Yeah.
uh, that is huge. Has immense, a huge impact in the industry. How it works today, the media industry, and in general the communication industry and the relations in the internet. So I believe that once the companies have more access or direct access to the consumers, and the consumers have more control over what they want to share, there will be a middle ground where companies will offer stuff, give them stuff, so they can be more open with their data, and
Yeah.
the users will understand that they are trading data for incentives. And I don't know how that is going to work, but I believe that this is a very this is great. I mean, it's great for companies. It's great for consumers. I don't know if it's not that great for social media companies, but it's it could it would allow companies to design more personalized experiences for those users, and even build communities that are related to what those users wants to do. Maybe they are fan of a soccer team, and they are in different places of the world, and and your company is not a sports company, but you know that you have a lot of soccer teams, soccer fans, and maybe you can create a community somewhere where you connect them, and they
Yeah,
found that
definitely.
you are delivering them an experience that they didn't expect from you, and you can even
Yeah.
partner with a company like yours, and so a company like mine can join with a company like yours to offer an experience to some soccer fans that we didn't know we could do that because we weren't connected in that way. So the options are a lot. I mean, it's huge. The amount of options that can come from that, the ideas, the possibilities are immense.
Definitely. I mean that is really cool. I would give a slight pushback on the notion that it will necessarily be bad for social media companies. I mean definitely with their current business models and data models, and so it will be a hit. I think what you still need even in this world is like you need good user interfaces, and you will have popular ones, right? They're even in a world where on some level of the technology stack you have more decentralization and you maybe have more self-sovereign identity, which would maybe be the technical term for what you described before. You still will need this kind of interface that people like to use, whether it's in the 2D web or in the 3D VR AR world. And I think that is in there lies a lot of opportunity. But yeah, to the rest of the points you're making and the opportunity that lies in just having like a unified identity where people have where data is stored, where digital certificates are stored, and if that in itself, like you said before, is not a boring wallet that is technical, but it's really a cool user experience, then that is very exciting and very interesting.
Yeah. Well, I agree the social media part of it, but they will have to become something different from what they are today. Today they're they aggregate data from people and they sell that. So this is the business model today.
Yeah,
In the future, they may become a service company. They offer you a service. They are in the middle of the user experience, but they don't own or they don't control the information that flows from one point to the other point.
Yeah, or I think some notion that at least something that we are working on in the background in early stages is to have the notion of data managers. So because I think like most users will still not want to manage their data on local devices and so on, and so suddenly it becomes you probably for users to have a convenient experience, you will need something like data managers, but they can pick them and swap between them, and these might have different business models, and you will probably be free to pay for your service, or maybe some could even be ad supported in a weird turn of events. But long story short, I think that is definitely where we could be moving. As I want to be conscious of your time, and one topic we didn't touch upon so far is, I guess you see certain problems in the Web3 space. If I gather and understand that correctly from your writing and some conversation we had off the record before. So what if you would pick the top three issues you see and that you think the Web3 community needs to tackle ASAP? Which would you pick and why?
Well, from my perspective and the world where I live in, one of the big problems is the messaging. It's not even about technology. It's about how they present, or the community present the technology to the rest of the world. I think it's messy. I think it's not realistic, and it gets a lot of people frustrated. So you have those who know how to build a blockchain have a big opportunity for them and for their careers. But the way they are seeing the world is very limited, and what they are pushing in terms of decentralization and cryptocurrencies, and it's sometimes I think it's not realistic. It doesn't really translate the power of the technology that they have to the users that they don't have. So, and the more they are into that world, the more they are into valuations and NFTs and selling and trading. The more that we see about that, and maybe not. I'm sure the media has also a responsibility there, because we like to focus on what is more big, what is bigger, what has more impossible headlines, something that makes you click. So there are things that sells more than others, like the metaverse, like having a headset that you get into that headset, and suddenly you are in a different world, and your life is going to turn into a video game, and that's nonsense. Obviously, that is coming to some degree, but the people that I know, my family, they are not going to jump from a smartphone that is maybe not the latest version of a smartphone into Fortnite tomorrow. It's not going to happen. I know that. So for that to happen, there has to be maybe even a generation, a transition in the kind of, I mean, the millennials or the centennials. They maybe go into that more virtual reality world or mixing world, but it's not the people that today you have as a customer. So when they are talking about that stuff, it's very like, okay, that's fine, but you are overselling the product. You are overselling the experience. And what happens when you oversell something is, and you get people interested, and you see what the product is today, then you get a wrong experience. You get it like you get the opposite of what you are trying to achieve. So that thing for me is critical. The way things are being communicated. Maybe because the decentralization has those things. Since you don't have somebody who is leading the conversation and everybody's talking about it and is decentralized, then you have a mix of opinions and messages. There are people who are toxic out there, many, and that doesn't help. So that's one of the main issues. And the other one would be the user experience. From my point of view, user experiences is, and I know your company, other companies you're working on fixing that, and how can we do this in a very seamless, and it's great. So then after that, and this is another issue, is what's the follow up? So once you get excited, once you get my mom excited, once my mom sign in to a platform, once my mom gets the first NFT, then my mom is saying to my dad, "Hey, look, I have an NFT. This is so cool. Okay, that's great, mom." And then tomorrow is like, my dad would say, "And what did you do with that NFT, mom?" And I have it here. And so a week later, my mom would say, "Yeah, I don't know. He is here." So what's the follow up? And so another thing is the speed of the change. If you send a strong message to a big audience, telling them, "Hey, join us," and you get them to join, and they have a good experience, what can you offer them tomorrow? And the tomorrow, that is still.
I would maybe, but I would maybe even go a step further and say, look, is this the kind of technology that needs to be front facing, or do we need to stop talking about the technology itself and have terminology like NFTs and so on, and just start focusing on the use cases that are enabled with this technology? Because to me, quite frankly, I don't know if ever your mom will be excited by NFTs. And NFTs are to an extent also just a very boring technology, except that if you make them usable in the right way, they become a pretty exciting canvas to build stuff, right? Because suddenly you have these digital objects that can be unique or scarce, and you can tie them to different things. These can be perks in the digital world. These can be even real world perks. Like I mean, there have been basically every big ticket company has acquired some blockchain company startup over the last 5 years, or built internal resources. And I'm pretty sure that at some point digital tickets will all be based on NFT technology, but you will not call it an NFT. You will just call it a ticket. and maybe you can have a few cool additional features that this ticket can use. Like, for instance, there is also, you get automated access for free to the recording of the show you attended on a service where other people have to pay and have a subscription, or stuff like that, right? Because it's digital, because it's openly accessible by different applications, and that is all cool. But I recently said at a sports business conference, look, in 5 years, much more people than today will use and have NFTs. They will just not call it this way, and maybe not even know that NFTs are being used.
Yeah, that maybe is that maybe happen. I'm one of the things I'm researching or reading a lot lately is because thinking about my mom is like, okay, how my mom would use this technology, and is one of the use cases that I see more interesting is at the local level. Like you have these local currencies. I know that there have been some success on that front, some failures on that front. I know that there are some local currencies that are already in blockchain. Some of those currencies, or at least all of the currencies that I've researched that have blockchain in the background, they don't promote the blockchain. You don't say, hey, we are in the blockchain. Actually, you have to go to terms and conditions to find that they are part of a blockchain, which is, it's interesting, right? But
yeah,
if that's
I didn't know this.
a use scenario that is pretty interesting, because if one of the things I was thinking, I began to think about this, about these local currencies or local use or local communities use of blockchains, with the idea of coupons. Everybody knows what a coupon is, and you go to a supermarket and they give you coupons, discounts. Coupons are paper based or app based, depending on the company, the supermarket. But those coupons actually are incentives. So if you take those coupons to a blockchain, if you get an association or what, and usually this model is already built. I mean, that's how local currencies work. You have a non-profit organization that they agree to with some business owners to release a local currency, so people can so they keep the money running in the community instead of going to I don't know, McDonald's, and McDonald's take the money to Michigan and whatever. So if you have that on a blockchain, and you give the owners of the stores the possibility of doing drops, and you go to shop, you buy bread and you shoes, whatever. You go there, you sign with your wallet or your device. Then they know you went there. They know what you liked, you bought. And then they can, whenever they have a discount, they can get the discount to you. Or if they are part of a community of business owners, they can join forces and release drops for Memorial Day, and you get those drops, and you get the NFT. You can have it if you like it. You can burn it if you go and shop with it. I mean, the options there. You can have NFTs. You can have tokens like local currencies, digital like cryptocurrencies. So I see my mom doing that. I see my mom going to the store and having this relation with the owner of the store, and being part of a community that shares, and they can trade coupons. You can go to, my mom goes to the gym, and she goes to the gym, and she has some friends there. Oh, look, you know that this store has this discount. Oh, I don't know. Oh, I have an extra discount, and they share the discount. Oh, I can, or they share tokens. I don't have enough tokens to go there and get that discount. Okay, don't worry. I share tokens with you because I had extra tokens for that last month. So I see that happening to a level that is obviously, and I agree with you, maybe they don't talk about tokens or NFTs. Maybe there's another name.
Yeah.
But that's something that I see that happening. I see that possible.
Yeah, definitely. So to come to an end here, I would be curious to learn what are like the next projects you will undertake in the space. What are you currently interested in, and why does the space still fascinate you, even though there are certain topics that are not solved yet. Let's put it like this.
Okay, the first question is that one is easy. So local currencies. I was actually writing a story about local currencies and NFTs and local use on how to reach local audiences. And I stopped that to write a story that I published last night because I went into a creative process that went wrong, and I wasn't very convinced of what I was doing, so I had to stop and do something different. And I thought that would be a great experience to talk about my frustrations. So that's one. Another one is gamification. I think part of what I want to understand, because that's my approach to this, I want to understand something, and I do this research for myself, and then I hope it can help other people. So gamification and understanding how these companies build these systems of incentives. I think it's very primitive so far. So that's what I found, and I want to write about that. And for the second part, what still fascinates me about this thing is that I yet have to see this on the media industry. I haven't. I mean, I've seen experiences, but it's crazy. It's crazy that nobody has found yet a way to really blows people's minds. And I really look for that moment. I hope that somebody blows my mind with, like, somebody that is obviously smarter than I am comes up with this idea. Like, I say, oh my god, that's it, and the moment we see that, we all say, oh yes, that's it. So it fascinates me that this is still this is still going to happen to me, and so I want to see that.
So Fernando, on these last 2 points, I think we should definitely hop on the air again and do some follow up. So personally, I would be very excited to talk about the incentives, but also the local currency topic with you once you are one step further on these ends. And on the latter, we are currently, I cannot talk too much about it, but there, it may or may not be the case that in the not too distant future, some media company projects come out that we have our fingers in, and I don't know if they will blow your mind. I don't even know if, like in the US, you will learn about it, but I guess they will be at least interesting to you. I
Oh
would
well,
hope
thank
so.
you. Look, I am always reading about stuff and looking for new stories and things that are fascinating me. No, it doesn't have to be about Web3. Could be about anything else. So yeah, I would love to connect again and continue the conversation, because it's sometimes when you talk about these things, you get more excited and you get more energy to continue researching, and in your case, developing a project. You are more invested in this than I am, at least for the moment. So yeah, sure. I mean, whatever you have your way, please.
You still have what, 1 million Shiba Inu coins or something like this?
Yes, I don't have a million. I don't have a million. I sold a little bit.
All right.
I thought it was funny to say that, because it tells you to what degree I went down to this rabbit hole.
Yeah, I guess many of us have been there. So Fernando, thank you so much for your time. It was great talking to you, and I hope to have you back on. If you out there enjoyed this episode, then of course we are very happy if you leave a good rating on iTunes or wherever you listen to your podcasts, and if you recommend us to your friends. On that note, have fun.